A Story About My Uncle has the constitution of a mod. It's pretty, but sparse, interesting, but buggy, and as a showcase for the qualities of a team, it is a great start. All signs point to a bright future for the game's makers. But A Story About My Uncle feels distinctly like a first effort. That is not a bad thing, in fact it's a very good thing, but it won't be as worthwhile an experience for its consumers as it was for its creators. The hook is that this is a story of a father's childhood that he's now recounting to his young daughter. As a young version of the father, the player explores the home of their uncle, who, incidentally, is a mad scientist that shouldn't be allowed anywhere near small children. I say this because after a short bout of exploration, you come across a kid-sized jetpack-grapple device that was clearly designed for you and has about a 100% chance of killing whoever puts it on. In no time at all, you're blasting off into the sky and find yourself stranded in another dimension. These opening moments make it clear that having an express narrative was important to the game's designers, and in broad strokes the story is fine, but is ultimately left wanting. The game doesn't have any dynamic narrative moments. It goes level, talk, level, talk, level, talk, and without anything interesting to say, the whole thing feels like it's playing in 4/4 with no percussion. It's supposed to be a simple bedtime story, and it is. What's most disappointing is that the art direction is intriguing, although it could have done with less caves, and that individual aspects of the story are solid but underdeveloped. For example, the first humanoids you encounter live off the garbage that your uncle has tossed out, which sets up a number of possibilities to discuss science versus agriculture or science as divinity, but the premise doesn't go anywhere at all. It kinda feels like Dad is giving a book report and doesn't really get the book, or can't remember how it happened, except that even that would have been a more interesting way to tell the story. Most of the game is made up of first-person platforming. Using your handy-dandy duo grapple jetpack, you bound into the sky and hookshot between platforms. It's not a freeform jumping playground, which is to say that most of the routes have very specific targets you can latch onto that take you to very specific landing zones. Restricting things further, the player has a limited number of times they can latch themselves to floating rocks before they need to touch solid ground again. Figuring out how to traverse a route isn't so much a puzzle as it is vigorous trial and error. The restricted design leads to some heart-pounding last-minute maneuvers. It's very difficult to save yourself from plummeting into oblivion, and when you do, it feels great. However, the lack of flexibility in how you get from point A to point B, and the precision that you need to hit floating targets as you barrel towards them in the sky, makes most of these split-second saves feel more like dumb luck than mastery of the game's mechanics. Falling and catching yourself is thrilling, but it is a small moment in a several-hour experience. The trouble with it all is that the game doesn't stand out. It has the folk fantasy finish of something like Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, and it strives to have momentum-based platforming in the vein of Mirror's Edge, but it doesn't succeed at being as charming as either. What's here is promise, not proof of concept. There's evidence of creativity and vision, but not nearly enough to justify a whole game. It wears its heart on its sleeve, and I love it for that, but it doesn't find a way to make good on its potential.